The most festive version of Carlos Alcaraz is here, spreading holiday cheer, and maybe a few unintentional gifts to his rivals, all thanks to his overdose of Christmas spirit. As the new tennis season looms on the horizon like a never-ending tiebreak, players are deep into their preseason grind, fine-tuning their serves and practicing those impossible volleys. But amidst the sweat-soaked training sessions and meticulous preparation, even the best of the ATP can't ignore the pull of the holiday season. And this year, no one is feeling the Yuletide vibes more than Carlos Alcaraz, who seems to have swapped his racket for a Santa hat. Temporarily, of course. Instead of smashing forehands past Novak Djokovic or Rafael Nadal, the young Spaniard has decided to embrace the role of Father Christmas, doling out hypothetical presents to his tennis adversaries before returning to the court to try and obliterate them in the name of glory. Ho ho ho, says Alcaraz, the ATP's youngest Santa. During his recent exhibition matches in the United States, a perfect excuse to keep his form sharp while sneaking in some festive fun. Alcaraz donned a Santa suit before his showdown with Frances Tiafoe in Charlotte. But forget about reindeer and chimneys. This Santa comes bearing gifts that only a fellow tennis pro could appreciate, or maybe just laugh at awkwardly. For Jannik Sinner, Alcaraz joked he'd gift him some new ski boots or skincare products. Because let's be real, that guy spends half his life on snowy mountains and the other half trying not to look like he's been skiing without sunscreen, quipped the cheeky Murcian. For Novak Djokovic, he admitted the task was a tough one. What do you give a man who's got 24 Grand Slams, a gluten-free diet stricter than your grandma's purse strings, and enough trophies to fill a museum? A good Spanish ham, of course. Even Novak deserves to indulge once in a while. And for the legendary Rafael Nadal, Alcaraz had two thoughtful options in mind: a top-notch bottle of wine to toast his ridiculous career or some fancy golf clubs, because the guy's swinging clubs almost as much as he used to swing his racket these days. Clearly, Carlos is no slouch when it comes to tailoring gifts to his rivals' quirks. But what about Alcaraz himself? When it came to his own wish list, Carlos wasn't coy. Forget material gifts. He's got his sights set on something much shinier, a trophy. Specifically, the Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of the year. Winning it would not only kick off 2025 with a bang, but also complete his Grand Slam collection by the age of 21. If I win it, I might even get a tattoo to celebrate, he confessed with a mischievous grin. Whether that tattoo will say AO Champ 2025 or feature a kangaroo holding a tennis racket remains to be seen. But one thing's clear, Alcaraz is determined to start the year on a high note. Coach Ferrero, the tough love Santa of tennis. While Alcaraz spreads Christmas cheer, his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, is all about keeping things real. Ferrero's mantra is simple: evolve or stagnate. Reflecting on Carlos's 2024 season, Ferrero praised his pupil's 2 Grand Slam victories but acknowledged that the rise of players like Sinner had made the journey more challenging. He's dropped to number 3 in the rankings, but we're not here for numbers. We're here for progress. If I have to give Carlos a score, it's a 9. But to win the really big matches, we need to hit a 10 every single time. Ferrero's no-nonsense approach might feel like a cold shower after Alcaraz's warm holiday spirit, but it's precisely that balance of levity and grit that has propelled the Murcian sensation to the top tier of the sport. 2025, a year full of challenges, presents, and maybe a few F-bombs. As the calendar flips to a new year, Alcaraz is gearing up for a packed schedule. His rivalry with Sinner is bound to intensify, Djokovic isn't going anywhere, and who knows, maybe Nadal will come roaring back with his wine-filled energy. Alcaraz knows it won't be easy, but with Ferrero by his side and a Santa hat tucked in his locker for good luck, he's ready to face whatever the tennis gods, or his opponents, throw at him. Let's hope I'm the one delivering the losses this year instead of the gifts, Carlos joked. And with that, he's off, back to the courts, ready to turn his festive spirit into ferocious forehands. We need a player who's a 10 at everything. Yeah, easier said than done, right? This is the seemingly impossible standard Juan Carlos Ferrero, coach extraordinaire of Carlos Alcaraz, is aiming for. In a candid and refreshingly no-nonsense interview with Punto de Break, Ferrero peeled back the layers on his pupil's game. Spoiler alert, even the golden boy of Spanish tennis isn't perfect. Shocking, I know. Ferrero admitted that Alcaraz is brilliant in some areas, like jaw-dropping forehands that make opponents question their life choices, but still has a few shortcomings that need polishing. Carlos has insane stats in certain aspects, but then in others, well, let's just say they're not as high. We're focusing on maximizing his strengths and ironing out those flaws. Ups and downs? Yeah, we've got those. If there's one Achilles heel in Alcaraz's game, it's inconsistency, those maddening peaks and valleys that make fans either scream in delight or want to throw their remotes. Those dips in performance, Ferrero explained, usually have a lot to do with how fresh or motivated you feel. That's why our goal is to ensure he shows up to every tournament motivated as hell, ready to unleash his best tennis every single week. Motivation, huh? Maybe someone should slide a Netflix subscription and a playlist of motivational bangers into his Christmas stocking. Carlos is growing up, kind of like a fine wine, but with more grunting. Despite the occasional roller coaster performances, Ferrero couldn't be prouder of Alcaraz's growth this year. The kid snagged 2 Grand Slams in 2024, and let's not sugarcoat it. Winning even one is like threading a needle while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. Winning 2? That's just showing off. It's been a phenomenal season, Ferrero admitted. But there's always room for improvement, both on and off the court. Carlos is fully aware of what he needs to work on each year. I see him maturing more and more every day, approaching his career with a sharper mind and a stronger sense of professionalism. Apparently, the pre-season grind has been a revelation. He's laser-focused, Ferrero said. He's reviewing the things that didn't go so well last year, and he's fully committed to making changes where they're needed. We're tweaking his DNA, or at least his serve. When it comes to the technical side, Ferrero isn't holding back. We're making a small adjustment to his serve, adding a bit more rhythm so it's smoother and more relaxed. It's all about finding that flow, baby. After that, we'll fine-tune the finer details, like making his forehand more of a damn weapon. It's already killer, but there are moments where it needs to be downright murderous. Ferrero is also working on reinforcing what he calls Alcaraz's tennis DNA, which sounds less like a strategy and more like the plot of a sci-fi movie. The aim? To make the Murcian phenom an even more complete, terrifyingly efficient player. We're focusing on his weaknesses, but also making sure his natural instincts are sharper than ever, he added. Plot twist. Alcaraz shakes up his schedule. In true Alcaraz fashion, the 21-year-old decided to throw a curveball into his pre-season plans. Originally, he'd opted out of the ATP 500 tournament in Doha, but surprise, surprise, he's now back in. This last-minute change has set the tennis world abuzz, with fans and pundits alike scrambling to figure out what it means for his 2025 strategy. Why the sudden switch? Who knows? Maybe he realized that skipping Doha would leave him with too much downtime, or maybe he just felt like stirring the pot. Either way, he'll be joining a stacked field of ATP stars for the event, which now promises to be a tantalizing prelude to the Australian Open. All roads lead to Melbourne, or so we hope. With the Australian Open just weeks away, Alcaraz has his sights set on the 1 Grand Slam missing from his trophy cabinet. Winning it wouldn't just complete his collection, it'd be the ultimate mic drop moment for a player who's already achieved so much at such a young age. If he pulls it off, he'll have won all the major titles before his 22nd birthday, Ferrero noted. That's historic. And honestly, if he does it, I'll be the first to insist he gets a tattoo to commemorate it. A tattoo? Of what? A kangaroo holding a tennis racket? A giant AO Champ 2025 across his bicep? Whatever it is, one thing's for sure, Alcaraz is stepping into 2025 with the determination to dominate. Ferrero's final word: good, but not perfect. Wrapping up the interview, Ferrero gave a thoughtful assessment of Alcaraz's year. 2024 was incredible. But there's always a but. Sinner has been on fire, and we need to stay ahead of him. and everyone else. Carlos isn't just here to compete. He's here to evolve, to keep pushing the limits of what's possible. So, here's the plan. Tweak the serve, weaponize the forehand, keep the motivation high, and maybe, just maybe, take over the tennis world one killer forehand at a time. Oh, and if Doha or Melbourne doesn't go well, there's always the tattoo idea to fall back on. Here's an extended, humorous, and irreverent rewrite in English. Carlos Alcaraz confirms his spot in the ATP 500 in Doha, a strategic stop in his 2025 tennis master plan. The world number 3, Carlos Alcaraz, has officially added another stop to his already jam-packed 2025 calendar. The ATP 500 in Doha. Yep, you heard it right. The young Murcian prodigy has decided to trade in a bit of R&R for more racket-smashing action. The tournament, scheduled from February 17th to 22nd, will be his next competitive appearance after the Australian Open. Unless, of course, he decides to throw Rotterdam into the mix for shits and giggles. Doha, which has upgraded its status to a 500 category tournament this year, is turning into the place to be. Why? Well, when you've got the likes of Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic ready to duke it out, it's no surprise the event has lured 7 top 10 players, including Daniil Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, and the ever-dangerous Alex de Minaur. Honestly, it's shaping up to be a gladiator pit for tennis's elite, and Carlos is diving headfirst into the chaos. Alcaraz's official calendar for 2025. More matches, less sleep. The ATP schedule is no joke. With tournaments sprinkled across the globe, players must navigate a minefield of travel, rankings, and exhaustion. For Alcaraz, the grind begins early, and his roadmap for world domination is starting to take shape. While more stops will undoubtedly be added as the year progresses, here's what we know so far about his 2025 itinerary. Australian Open, January 12th to 26th. The first Grand Slam of the year and the holy grail that's still missing from Carlitos's trophy cabinet. ATP 500 Doha, February 17th to 22nd. The glamorous desert showdown where he'll clash with heavyweights like Djokovic and Sinner. Indian Wells, March 1st to 16th. Time to dominate the California sunshine and rack up some serious ranking points. ATP 500 Barcelona, April 12th to 20th. A home court advantage and the perfect warm-up for the clay season. Roland Garros, May 25th to June 8th, where champions are made and red clay becomes a battleground. ATP 500 Queens, June 16th to 22nd. The grass season starts here, a crucial step toward Wimbledon glory. But wait, there's more. This is just the beginning. With around 20 tournaments expected on his schedule, Alcaraz will be making stops at the Mutua Madrid Open, Wimbledon, Toronto, Cincinnati, and of course, the US Open. Not to mention potential appearances in Beijing, Shanghai, and Paris. Talk about jet lag. Let's talk strategy, shall we? Before diving headfirst into the ATP calendar, Alcaraz is kicking off 2025 with a bit of fun and charity. He'll be participating in the Ad Racing Stars tournament, a feel-good event where he'll face off against Alex de Minaur and Alexei Popyrin. It's a perfect warm-up to shake off the holiday indulgences and maybe burn off those extra Christmas calories. The real grind begins in Melbourne, where he'll attempt to dethrone Sinner and reclaim the coveted world #1 spot. This year, it's not just about lifting trophies, it's about sending a message. And knowing Alcaraz, that message is likely to be, move over, Djokovic. There's a new sheriff in town. Why Doha? Why now? Let's not sugarcoat it. Doha's sudden rise to ATP 500 status has turned it into a must-play event. With more ranking points, a stacked player roster, and desert vibes that would make even the most jaded pro excited, it's the perfect place for Alcaraz to sharpen his skills. Plus, let's face it, any opportunity to outshine Djokovic or Sinner is worth taking. The big picture, 2025 and beyond. Carlos Alcaraz isn't just playing tennis. He's building a legacy. His rapid ascent has already made him a household name, but the pressure to stay on top is relentless. His team, led by the ever-demanding Juan Carlos Ferrero, is laser-focused on one thing: making Carlitos the ultimate tennis machine. Whether it's fine-tuning his serve, making his forehand more lethal, or ensuring he doesn't burn out by July, every move is calculated. Doha is just one piece of the puzzle, but it's a critical one. After all, consistency is the name of the game, and the more high-stakes matches Alcaraz plays, the better prepared he'll be for the Grand Slam gauntlet. Final thoughts. Tennis Extra is your home for all things Alcaraz. If you're as hyped about the 2025 season as we are, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Tennis Extra community. From deep dive analyses to exclusive interviews and in-depth coverage of every tournament, we've got you covered. Want to know Alcaraz's secret training tips? Curious about Djokovic's diet plan? Fascinated by the mind games between Medvedev and Rublev? This is the place to be. So, grab your popcorn, settle in, and get ready for a year of unforgettable tennis moments. Because if Alcaraz's schedule is any indication, 2025 is going to be one hell of a ride.